Class, what's up? Welcome to our first video on proofs. Alright, today we're going to focus on proofs that involve SSS, or side-side-side, as well as SAS, or side-angle-side. Now, to warm up, I want us to do a quick review and get really good at recognizing which postulate we can use. So in picture 1, what do we have? We have two sets of tick marks already. The thing that you need to understand, guys, and you need to get really good at this, is you have an overlapping, or shared, I should say. It's not overlapping. It's a shared side, right? This side going right down the middle is the same side in the top triangle as it is in the bottom triangle. So I can mark that as congruent to itself, and now I would say I have one set of sides, two sets of sides, and a third set of side. I know that's third set of sides. I know the third set's kind of goofy to think about, but that's the whole point of the reflexive property, and I can use side, side, side. Now, in number 2, I see I have one set of sides, I have another set of sides, and then I have this angle. It's super important that this angle is right between, or is included between the two sides. And is it? Absolutely. Both of the sides are coming, or are part of that angle. Both, and then the same thing over here, I should say. Okay, so this is good. This is side angle side. Let's see here. In number 3, I have 3 sets of angles, and you know what? While that does do something, it does not show congruence. Okay, I don't know that this side between the first and second arc marks, I don't know, maybe that's like 10, and then this one over here is just like 5. We don't know anything about the sides. So this is a none. Alright, in 4, I hope you guys agree with me that I need to mark something. Why? Because I have a shared side. That side right down the middle is the same in both. And now I see that I have 2 sets of arc marks, right? Single, single, double, double, and an included side. So that would be A, S, A. Please be careful. With angles, with 2 angles, you have 2 options. You can have angle, side, angle, where the side is included, or you can have angle, angle, side, where the side is not included. It is not the same for when you have 2 sides and 1 angle. If you have 2 sides and 1 angle, the angle has to be between the 2 sides, or included, I should say. Alright? Okay, we move on. In number 5, again, I only see 2 sets of markings, but I see that I have a shared side. So now I have 2 sets of angles, right? Singles, rights, and then a side. Is the side included? No, it is not. It is not between the 2 angles, so this is A, S. Alright, in number 6, I only see 2 sets of congruent marks, which means I need to think about a property for my other set, and I see that I have vertical angles. So now I have 2 sets of congruent sides, and the included angles are congruent. So SAS. Alright, let's keep going. Okay, so I have doubles and triples, so I have 2 sets of sides, and then I have angles. Be very careful, though. Please be very careful. This angle over here is between the 2 sides. This angle over here is not between the 2 sides. So these are none, because they do not correspond to each other correctly. Alright? Last one of the warm-up. Okay, I have angles, I have sides, I need something else. I hope I can tell from my picture that I have more angles in the middle because of vertical angles. And now I can see that I have angles, 2 sets of angles. Is the side included? No, it is not. It is not between the 2 angles, so I use angle, angle, side, not angle, side, angle. Alright? So that's a warm-up. Basically, guys, now all we're doing the exact same thing that we just did above, but now we have to write a huge, long explanation called a proof. You may have heard your friends talking about them, how much they dislike them. I love proofs. I think they're fantastic, and I hope you do too, eventually. Maybe. Okay, so when we look at something like number 9 right here, this proof, Givens, anything that's given, always needs to be marked. This is why we spent time in class practicing our markings. All right, you need to be able to mark up your picture absolutely perfectly. What do I mean? BS is congruent to CS. I mark it. If it helps you, color coordinate or something. Do something. So I went red there. Now, AS is congruent to DS. That's number 2. Uh-oh, I have a problem. I don't have anything else as givens. But what do I see in the picture that you have to understand and recognize? Vertical angles, okay? We have vertical angles. So now, guys, what we need to be able to do is figure out that this is going to end up being side, angle, side, because the angle is included. So I'm going to write myself a little note so I know that at the end I'm going to need to use SAS. Well, now, guys, all you have to do, like you basically did and understand what's true, now you just have to write it all out, okay? So this is how this kind of goes. I'm going to write BS is congruent to CS, and I knew that. Why? It was given to me. I'm also going to write AS is congruent to DS, and how do I know that? Because it was given to me. Alright, next thing I need to say here. I need to say that angle ASB and angle, so if I go A to S to B, I have to go D to S to C. Okay, so angle DSC are vertical angles. And honestly, guys, the reason for that, and I should be putting numbers here, sorry, 1, 2, 3, is just the diagram, right? We look at a picture and we see that we have vertical angles. So that's the reason. And now from this, which is really nice, is I can say that angle ASB is congruent to angle DSC. And why do we know that? Well, because vertical angles are congruent. Alright, hopefully that made sense. And this is important. You need to first recognize from the picture that there are vertical angles, like number 3, and you say that you got it from the picture or the diagram, and then you give a statement about what you're seeing or what you know because there are vertical angles. And because there are vertical angles, well, I know that ASB is congruent to DSC. And why? Because vertical angles are congruent. Now, guys, I'm ready. I have everything I need. And one thing, I should have done, I'm sorry, I'm going to also be marking my piece. So I know that this was a side, and this was a side, and now I have this A here because those were my angles. So if you notice, I have the 3 things that I need in my statements to prove SAS. So that tells me that I'm ready to go. That tells me that I'm ready to finish my proof by saying, and this is where you just write exactly what it asks. It says for BSA, triangle BSA, to be congruent to triangle CSD. That is what they wanted you to prove. So now we know that that's true, and the reason is SAS. The last thing I would do is I would put the numbers of the reason, or the statements that I used. So I used a side, so 1, and then I used the angle, which was statement 4, and then I used another side, which was statement 2. And I am done with this proof. Alright, so again, just to talk through this, you make sure you draw in everything that you know. Okay, you make sure you draw in everything that you know. You make sure you take care of any other properties that you can get from the picture. Vertical angles, the reflexive property, right angles, anything like that you need to mark as well. Then I would ask you to figure out what's going on. Like, how do you think you're going to make what reason are you going to be able to use to prove these triangles congruent? And then you just start explaining everything. Any givens you should list, and the reason is given. Anything you got from the picture, you need to explain that you got from the picture, and then you need to start giving properties, right? Like if I saw vertical angles, well then I know they're going to be congruent because of my vertical angle property, if that makes sense. Then once you have absolutely everything that you need to prove that the triangles are congruent, you say the triangles are congruent. Okay? Let's do one more together, and then you'll have lots of time to practice in class. All right, this one at the top of page 36 is another great proof. All right. Okay, so let's mark what we can do. So T is the midpoint of SR. T is the midpoint of SR. That means I know I can put tick marks for ST and TR. Why? Well, because if T is the midpoint, it's splitting it in half. Or into two congruent pieces, I should say. Alright, so that's my purple. I'll mark that as purple. Now my red will go here, SP and RP. So SP, RP. Anyone think they see the last one? Oh, I sure hope you're getting this. TP is going to be congruent to itself, right? That side is the same side in both this top triangle and the bottom triangle, so that you have to use the reflexive property for. Alright? So, let's start writing this proof. This one's going to be a little different. It's going to show you what you have to do because of this first given. Alright? The first given is not that ST is congruent to TR. The first given is that T is midpoint of SR. The second given is SP is congruent to RP. Alright, now both of these are givens. So given, we're good there. Alright, what I need you to understand is at this point in time, you cannot put S here. You cannot put an S by number 1. You can put an S by this one. Why? Because I actually see that a side is congruent to another side. Or a segment to a segment, I should say. You have work to do from the first piece, from the first given. And we're going to do that right now. From this given, that T is a midpoint of SR, I can say that ST is congruent to RT. And how do I know that? Okay, I know that because if midpoint then divides into two congruent segments. I need you to understand that this is super important. If I don't give you that the segments are congruent, then you need to get there from my given. Alright? This is not the same as this. This comes from this, and I hope that makes sense. Alright? I need to see this, but I can't get there until I give a reason. Okay? So now I can go ahead and I can put a side there, because now I have my second set of sides. Lastly, hopefully you guys agree, well, I can say that TP is congruent to TP through what? You guessed it, the reflexive property. And all I need to say is that reflexive property. That is my third side. And shoot, I should have done this earlier, my bad. We knew that this was going to be by side, side, side. So now my whole idea here is now that I know, or I knew before it was going to be side, 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 and I have all the sides, I know that I'm ready to be finished. I know that I can go straight to my prove line, which is that triangle PST is congruent to triangle PRT, and I'm using side, 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 and it doesn't matter. I'm just going to go straight down the line, 2, 3, 4, because 2, 3, and 4 were all sides. Alright, so this is a good introduction to proof. Again, we are going to practice this quite a bit. This is basically all we're doing until we start reviewing for finals. So I hope that this is making a little bit of sense. I hope that you are understanding how the flow of it works and how it's really the same thing as just figuring out if something is side, side, side or not, or side angle side. but then just explaining everything very nicely in this column form. Okay? All right, I will leave it there. Hope you have a good one. Bye.